Hi friends, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to give you my top 5 study hacks in medical school. My name is Alyssa and I am a first year medical student, and here is what is currently working for me. My first tip is to use a personalized study break schedule. You probably heard of the Pomodoro technique, which is where you study for 25 minutes and take a 5-minute break. Then you repeat this for 4 intervals and then you take a 30-minute break. Well, I found for me that the switching between studying and breaking so frequently actually made it more difficult for me to regain focus when I started studying again. So what I did is I modified the timing to fit my needs better. I start losing focus at about 45 minutes to an hour. So that's my study interval. And then I take a 10 to 15 minute break. And then I repeat this for as many times, maybe 3 times, maybe 4 times. And then I take a longer break and I hit up the gym or I get a snack. And for me, this works a lot better because it's modified to my attention span. And for some people, that may be longer or shorter, and just look for a pattern over time. And even throughout the day, that will change. So by the end of the day, you might not be able to study and focus for as long as you were able to earlier on in the day. So notice these patterns and then modify the study schedule to fit you. If you're a person who can study for 31 minutes and 23 seconds, well, note that and then find out what it is the next day or in the evening and find out what really works for you, because there is no perfect study technique, there's no perfect timing, it's only what works best for you. So keep that in mind. My second tip is to skip lecture, but only if your lectures are recorded or pre-recorded. So I found that I was going to lecture just to go to lecture, and I was listening very passively. So instead of that, what I've started doing is I will watch lecture, and at the same time I will make Anki cards or take notes. So I will pause the lecture to take the notes or whatever and look up any undefined terms or terminology that I am not familiar with or anything to really enhance the information with examples. I will look all of this up as I'm listening to this lecture. That way it's made my lecture listening a lot more productive and I'm able to recall that information a lot better. My third tip is to talk to the students who are ahead of you in school. Find out what methods they use to study for their classes. Find out what sorts of detail the class exams go into. And for instance, a lot of my classes have required reading. It turns out that the reading isn't really required. Definitely talk to those students who are ahead of you. They are very, very valuable wealths of information. My fourth tip is to study differently for each class. So for biochemistry, I have a different approach than I do for anatomy than I do for human behavior. So for biochemistry, for instance, what I do, since there are a lot of different pathways, for example, the biosynthesis of heme, what I will do is I will have the correct pathway and I will look at it a few times, and then I will try to draw from memory that exact pathway with all of the different intermediates, and then I will compare it to the correct pathway. I will do this basically with as many iterations as it takes to get it down perfectly. Whereas for anatomical sciences, I usually use the Anki image occlusion to cover up the different terms of, say, the muscles or the bones, or really anything that can be a landmark or identifiable. And for human behavior, this requires a different approach completely. In human behavior, they're not going to ask us what percentage of people have depression. Like, they have that in the notes, but it's not really a high yield type of a question. They're going to give you an example of somebody who is presenting with a certain amount of symptoms, and you need to decide what sort of disorder that falls into. So for that class, Anki cards are not a great fit. Instead, I try to do as many examples as possible. But anyway, use a different approach for every class because they all require different approaches. Finally, my last tip number 5, is to reevaluate how you studied after an exam. So did you find that you were going through the exam and you knew nearly every single answer and they were all pretty easy? That's a good sign that you overstudied. And that's something that I struggle with, because I struggle with knowing what is the appropriate level of studying to get the grade that I want. And I notice that I sometimes waste time because I study too in depth for something and that extra time doesn't always translate into a better grade. So I'm trying to better reevaluate. Or did you find that you were going through the exam and you didn't put enough emphasis on studying something? For me, my last exam in biochemistry, I didn't put enough emphasis on the medications, and they did. So I didn't do as well as I wanted to because I didn't place the emphasis on the medications. And I should have known that because they've really been hitting medications hard in that class, but I don't know what I was thinking. So anyway, after every exam, really reevaluate what went well and what didn't go well so you can modify your study habits accordingly. So those are my top 5 study hacks in medical school. I hope this is helpful. I hope you learned something new from this, and if you would please put your study hacks in the comments section below so we can all learn together and get better at studying, that would be awesome. And please consider liking and subscribing this video for more content about medical school. So yeah, thanks for watching everyone, and see you soon.